I realize now that the way I explained my relationship with my father earlier was a little confusing, so I'm going to explain it in a little bit greater detail now. So, I'm going to start with the only way I know how, the milkman. My father constantly tells me that I am not the milkman's daughter because I am so much like him and I have so much in common with him and all this other bullshit. And how we have essentially the same emotional track level where if I get really happy, I'm really happy. And if I get sad, I go off the deep end and I get like depressed as fuck. But it only lasts for a little while. Then I have these neutral moments where I like really don't give that much of a shit. My dad has the same things, but he's learned how to control it because he's like 45 and I'm 15 and he's trying to tell me that all of the emotions that I have and shit are not worth it because once you get to have all the experience he's had with all of these emotions, it doesn't matter anymore. But I haven't had any of those experiences yet. So I'm still going through the phase of having those experiences with the different kinds of emotions and the different kinds of situations where those emotions would come up. And it's really annoying because he does nothing but criticize the fact that I am having these emotions that are like, there's no point in having them because it doesn't matter anyway. In the long run, it's not going to matter that I was on a scooter for 2-3 weeks extra. In 6 months, that's not going to matter. In 6 months, that's not going to be that big of a deal, but right now it is. So why stress about it right now when in 6 months it's not going to be that big of a fucking deal? But since this is the first kind of thing that's happened to me like that is like big emotional toll, I haven't like processed anything like this before, so it's relatively frustrating because he knows and he's been through kind of life experiences saying that it's just like it's okay. In 6 months this will be behind you, and it's like, oh yeah, that thing that happened then kind of sucked when it happened, but now that it's happened, it's just like it doesn't really matter all that much anymore. But now when it's happening, it's a lot bigger deal for me than it is for him because he's gone through that kind of thing already. Not this thing specifically, but that kind of thing. And it's like relatively frustrating because he does that to me with everything, not just my scooter. He does that to me with everything. It's just like I'll have a problem and I'll just want him to go, oh yeah, that kind of sucks, and just like have a conversation with me about it. But instead I'll tell him a problem and he'll come up with 90 different solutions for it when I don't want a solution. I just want to bitch to someone, and I tell him I just want to bitch. So listen, he'll still come up with ways to solve a problem. And it's really annoying because he never listens to anything I say. So today, what happened was I had a relatively emotional conversation with my dad. I called him up. I said, I have good news, I have bad news. Which do you want first? And he said, bad news. And we started talking about my yearbook class. How, because I'm not taking outhouses, which are picture opportunities like at football games or at golf practices or soccer or whatever, all that kind of shit. That's like not during school hours in school. So, how I'm not taking any outhouses, it's starting to affect my grade. And he's coming up with all these different reasons. He's just rattling one right off of the other about how I could do this, I could do that. Well, golf practices, we could get a golf cart. Swimming, you could do 3 different pictures sitting in the same spot. It's just like you have all of these different choices of what you can do, but then he starts arguing with me about how I don't want different solutions, or I'm just gonna shoot down all of the solutions that I give him. And I'm like, no, I want solutions. It's just I don't want them now. I just want a bitch. And he goes, but I'm giving you solutions. Why don't you just pick one? Like, I don't want a solution. So we get into this yelling match about it, and this happens too often. But we get into this yelling match about it, and after the end of this yelling match, it just he goes on to explain how maybe this isn't a good way to parent. And he goes into like this realization of the whole, he's had a whole shit ton more experience and I haven't, and to just shove it on me and say, this isn't going to matter in 6 months, the whole thing that I was explaining earlier. He goes in to realize that, and then he's talking about it. He goes, you know what? Next time you have a conversation where you just want to lay down a problem, you don't want any problem solving from me, just say, Dad, I'm gonna bitch, listen, say nothing else, and then we'll have a conversation about it. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. So, I don't think it's gonna happen again, but it most likely will because he's my father. But, yeah, that was the simple version of it. Just imagine what the long version of it is.